Hey everybody, Gromlos here with some more War Thunder gameplay. So this time I thought I'd take a look at some more ground attacking in the Combined Arms mode. The last time I did that a little bit was during the closed beta, and Combined Arms had quite a few problems, like AAA for example back then. When ground forces went open beta, the Combined Arms were deactivated at first. But last week we got them back, and it is now again possible to fly on ground forces maps, and there are a few changes compared to the closed beta version. On top of that, there was an important announcement this week about the future of the simulator battle queue. In this announcement, Gaijin stated that in simulator battle mode, the combined queue and the pure air queue will soon be united, and only combined battles will be available for simulator battles in the queue in the future. Not surprisingly, this change is very controversial, and many simulator battle players are worried how this will turn out. So in this video I thought I'd at first talk about the current state of the combined battles from the pilot's perspective, and give you a bit of an overview of what in my opinion works and what doesn't work and what needs to be changed. And then I give you my opinion on the upcoming unification of the two queues in simulator battle mode. Well then, let's take a look at the combined battles at the moment. One big difference between the way they were in the closed beta and the way they are now is that during the closed beta you had to decide in the hangar if you want to bring a plane or a tank to the battle, and in the battle you of course could only use the plane or the tank you had chosen before the battle started and nothing else. This has changed significantly in the open beta version. You can now queue up with your entire lineup of tanks and planes and decide when the battle starts if you want to fly a plane or drive a tank. The matchmaker uses the vehicle with the highest battle rating in your lineup for the matchmaking, so be careful that you don't have a tank or plane in your lineup with a higher battle rating that you don't intend to use. Now that's not all though. The way it currently works, you can use both a tank with its respawns as well as a plane in the same battle. So you can start out with a tank, and once it is dead you can spawn in an aircraft, or the other way around. And if your tank has two spawns, as is often the case, you can even drive a tank first with its first spawn, then switch to a plane after this tank dies, and then after you lose this plane you can use the tank's second respawn. Now that system has of course quite a few problems, as well as one small good point. Now, one big problem with this system is of course that not everybody want or can use both tanks and planes. It is simulator after all, and flying a plane is not that easy. And not everybody who likes to fly in simulator battle also wants to use a tank. Not everybody is interested in both. The current system is somewhat unfair towards those people, as they basically get one less respawn in the same battle. I am one of the players that like both to fly and drive tanks, so I get the plane and the tank in the same battle. Players that are only tankers get only the tank, and pure pilots get only a plane. And even though I personally can do both and I often like to do both, in some cases I am also just in the mood to fly a plane or just in the mood to drive a tank, and don't necessarily want to do both in the same battle. Another problem is the good old "there should not be respawns in simulator battles anyway" problem, and I agree with that. The reason has been stated often enough. It is just not what a simulator battle should be about, and there are always those immersion breaking revenge kills. I just had a few minutes before starting to make this video a very good example for that. I killed a D-34 in my Stuk, he saw where I went and immediately came back and killed me in revenge. I then saw where he went and immediately came back for a revenge kill. Having an additional spawn with a plane does not make this any better. I had a situation where people I killed in a tank came straight back for a revenge kill in a Stuka, and then got shot down by AAA and spawned in the second tank spawn. That should just not be a thing in simulator battles, and I don't think it is necessary either. So what I would like to see in the future is that this gets changed so that you can still decide if you want to play a tank or a plane at the start of the battle, but you can't do both in the same battle. That would be a lot more fair towards the people that want to play only a tank or fly only a plane. Now, I did say that there is a small positive thing about the system too, and indeed, while I do think that the current system should be changed in the near future, there is one reason why I don't mind that it is the way it is at the moment. And the reason for that is, while playing Combined Arms, I noticed a large amount of players flying or trying to fly that, according to their stats, did not do so before in Simulator Battle mode. Now, as you probably know, I do enjoy flying in Simulator Battle mode a lot since I started doing it about a month ago, so I actually would really like to see more people doing it and see the mode grow. And I think the current system gets a lot of people into trying to fly in Simulator Battle mode, and why not? Once they have lost their tank and they know they could respawn in a plane to stay in the fight, a lot of people might think, oh what the hell, I give it a try, and I think a lot of them will then see that while it is challenging to fly a plane in Simulator Battle mode, it is not as difficult to fly as some make it out to be, once you try it a few times. So that may lead to quite a few more players flying in Simulator Battle mode, which in turn makes the whole thing more important to Gaijin. And that in turn will hopefully lead to a larger focus on the mode and more and faster updates and fixes for problems with the mode. And that is why while I want the respawn system to eventually change to allow only a plane or a tank and not both, I don't mind it as much if it stays the way it is now for a little while at least. I just hope it sparks an interest in flying in Simulator Battle mode in some people. Now, let's talk about another important issue for flying in Combined Arms, the maps and the AAA. Now, AAA was a huge problem in the closed beta and made it almost impossible to fly on most of the arcade maps. Now, in the open beta, the AI AAA's behavior has been changed a little bit and the situation on some maps has certainly improved a bit, especially in Kursk, which was the best map to fly on in Simulator Battle mode to begin with, which isn't surprising since it is the only non-arcade map in the current map rotation. But there are of course still problems. Some of the arcade maps, especially Karelia, are still almost impossible to fly on, because there is still too much and far too well hidden AA on those maps. However, this is of course something we have talked about countless times. The main problem here is that those maps are arcade maps, built with arcade mode in mind and should not even be in the Simulator Battle rotation in the first place. I had hoped we would see new simulator maps to replace the arcade maps before the game went into open beta, but that did not happen. So I won't even try to talk about what should be changed on the arcade maps. They should and hopefully will soon be replaced by proper Simulator Battle maps like Kursk. However, the AAA itself I think needs some more tweaks, even on Kursk. Now the thing is, talking from my experience playing Combined Arms the last week, even when flying on some of the arcade maps, I would say that AAA can lead to some fun and interesting gameplay. However, there need to be some changes. For example, flying on Ash River with the IL-2, I had quite a bit of fun approaching the battlefield low level and staying below the AAA and take out AA guns first in low level strafing attacks before moving on to the tanks. In this case, there was actually a reason to fly low level in an IL-2, and that I think was pretty fun, having a real reason to do this kind of low level flying. However, there are of course some things that need adjustment. First, to get this out of the way, yes, the AAA on Ash River is not balanced. The AA on the German side of the map is easier to take out than the one on the Russian side. So that's a map design problem. But again, I hope those arcade maps get replaced anyway. But the AAA itself on this and other maps needs some adjustments too. While it is nice to finally have a real reason to fly low in an IL-2, there are of course a lot of planes that are not supposed to fly this way and they are in trouble. For example, a Stuka needs some altitude to do a proper dive bombing attack, or fighters providing top cover above the battlefield. I think the AAA on many of the maps simply has too much range and is too accurate and long range. On Kursk, for example, I have often seen every AAA gun on the enemy team fire at my fighter, and pretty accurate too, while I'm kilometers away and over a kilometer high, and those guns are somewhat small caliber anti-aircraft cannons, like 25 to 40 mm. I think that should be adjusted and the range reduced, so that a ground attacker like the IL-2 has to worry about it and fly smart to avoid them and take them out first, but a fighter at high altitude above the battlefield or a kilometer away from it should not have to worry about them this much. Large AAA guns like the 88mm should, while having the range, be reduced in accuracy too in my opinion, and should have problems firing at low targets. Those guns were just not that accurate in reality, and in the end it is a PvP game and it should be primarily the job of the players to take out enemy players. So what I would like to see is AAA that is similar to how it is now on Kursk, but only on shorter ranges, so that planes that have to take the AA out are the ones that are supposed to do it, like an IL-2 or a HS-129 for example, and fighters high above the battlefield don't have to worry about 25mm AAA guns. Overall I would say though that it already works pretty good on Kursk. The AA has to cover a larger area than on the arcade maps and it is easier to find them and take them out. I think with a few tweaks to range and long range accuracy, AAA looks pretty good on real simulator maps like Kursk. Now another thing that needs some improvement in combined arms for simulator battles is in my opinion the render distance of tanks, which still seems to be far too low. I don't know why, maybe the low detail models are not ready yet, but this is another thing that needs to be looked at before the two queues are combined. Otherwise you might get situations where player AAA trucks can fire on planes while being invisible to said plane at the same time, and I had enough of that in PlanetSide 2. Vehicles being invisible and suddenly popping up out of nowhere should just not happen in a game like War Thunder. However, in turn for a higher render distance, the damage of some plane weapons might need to be adjusted as well to counter the longer spotting range. For example, bombs of 250 kg and above seem to have a very large kill range, and I think they might need some adjustment to require a more accurate hit to completely destroy a tank. Otherwise, bombing tanks might become too easy once the render distance is to where it should be, because it is much easier to do a proper approach on the target. You can already kind of see that on the arcade maps with their tiny cap circles. When someone is capping, you only have to aim for the cap circle and you can do your approach without seeing the target yet, even though you should from this range. And in this case it is very easy to kill everything within this cap circle with a single bomb, no matter where in the circle it hits. And even though I fly a lot in War Thunder, I do like fair play too and a challenge, and I think bombing tanks is a little too easy at the moment, and having a proper render distance for tanks might turn it into a real problem. Still, this is simulator battle mode, tanks should simply not be invisible no matter what, and if the planes turn out to be too good at bombing tanks when the render distance is fixed, the kill radius for the bombs needs to be looked at, so that a more accurate approach is required for a kill. Well, and one last thing that bothers me a little bit. I think it should be possible in a plane to switch between the air and the tank map to use the same grid for communications. At the moment I even think about just printing the tank maps so that I can use it to communicate with my team on the ground and they can give me the location of enemy tanks using their grid. I think switching between the two maps should be possible for that reason. Sure, if you play in a team with voice comms, your teammates can simply describe where they want you to bomb. But you don't always play with voice comms, and a random teammate with only chat and not that much time will need the map grid to tell you where he wants you to deliver your bombs. I think planes and tanks having access to the same grid and making it therefore easier for tanks to call in airstrikes from real players would increase the immersion quite a bit. Well, those were some thoughts on what I think should change for combined battles before the queue gets combined. Now let me give you my opinion on the unification in general. Now I know a lot of people are worried or disappointed about that decision, but I have to say I think that this could be a very good thing if the necessary changes and adjustments are made in time. The thing is that, as you probably know, if you watched my videos before, since I started flying simulator battle mode, I always massively preferred the events over the normal queue. There are more players in them and there are usually no bots and more historically accurate matchups. The few times that I have tried the normal queue though for the normal simulator battle mode, I have to say I was not that impressed with the games I got into. Few players and a lot of bots. Sure, a lot of the events need some balancing work, but even the ones that are not balanced were in my opinion simply more fun than the normal queue. And while flying in the combined arms mode, I have to say, even with all those things that definitely still need fixing, I simply had fun. And because of all this, I personally have no problem with the pure air crew disappearing. I never considered it to be very fun compared to the events anyway. But of course, if Gaijin takes the step, they need to do it properly. The things I have mentioned in this video need to be addressed before the queues get merged. And of course, we only have the Germans and the Russians for combined arms yet. So measures need to be taken to give the pilots of the other nations an opportunity to keep flying. The duel is one such measure, but it can't be the only one. I would say that the normal events should focus on the US and Britain versus Japan scenarios, since the queue will be German versus Rus only for a while. Another idea would be to only merge the Russian and the German queue and keep the US, Britain and Japanese queue up unmerged until those nations get their ground forces too. If all those issues are addressed and we get more proper simulator maps to replace the arcade maps, I have no problem with the merge, and I think the battles in combined arms are a lot of fun. And for pure air-to-air combat, there are the events, which again I prefer anyway. Well, we will see how it turns out. Well, and this is it for this video. As always, I hope it was entertaining, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.